one of my favorite economists who wrote a great book called Men Without Work, talks about the fact that there's 7 million able-bodied men right now who are not only not working, they're not looking for work, right? That's never happened in our country, not in peacetime. Anyway, 7 million men are not in the workforce. You're saying what's wrong with them?
Well, I'm not saying what's wrong
Maybe
with
they
them. I'm
value work-life balance.
I'm curious.
Where's the balance, dude? Where's the balance? This is really important. Nick answers that question. But the first thing he says is, let's look at what they're not doing. Okay? 7 million able-bodied men not working. Okay, what are they doing? He says, well, they're not volunteering at their local church. They're not in the JCs. They're not in the Kiwanis Club. They're not in Lions Club. They're not helping out with Skills USA or the Boy Scouts of America or the Future Farmers of America. They're not engaged in any way in any kind of civic connective tissue, which for a long, long time was the thing that you would do if you had some spare time and you had something to contribute. Like, none of that is happening. What his research bears out, unfortunately, is an average of 2,000 hours a year on a screen. No judgments. But are they lazy? Or did we create an environment where we said it was okay to do that with your life? Are we incentivizing? Are we disincentivizing? And that's when it gets political. Half the country right now is going to look at that cohort and say, good for them. Why should they work for these greedy, rapacious capitalists who are just out there to take and take and take, and all the billionaires with all their money and the exploitive class and so forth? And then my buddies on the right will say, to your point, yeah, they're fundamentally lazy. Shame on them, shame. Now, I'm somewhat right of center, I think, but I don't think it's as simple as writing them off as lazy. Something else has happened in the culture, and we do that. Sorting that out is important. It's got to be done because it doesn't reflect well on who we are as a country or a species.
What do you think happened?
To all of them, I have no idea. But again, back to the broad brush thing. Look, I think they were told collectively that the system's rigged and that life isn't fair and that the only way to get ahead is to take from somebody else and that it's a zero-sum game, right? It's that. It's just this, you're never going to make it because the game is rigged. I think that's, one of the most self-defeating, greatest lies, that we've told a whole generation. So again, broad brush, but I think a lot of them genuinely feel that.
What are your thoughts on the consequences for mediocrity not being very great anymore? It's like back in the day, if you didn't go out and work, then you were stuck at home and you couldn't afford food for your family and really, or even have a home maybe. Whereas now, if you want to kind of just do whatever, you can hang out on your phone and watch the most interesting YouTube videos
Dirty
for free. Dirty jobs.
Now it's syndication. Sure.
You can live a pretty comfortable life doing not a whole lot.
Well, there's so much there. What's the upside of being comfortable? Where's the benefit?
I would say it's very
Complacency,
immediately
maybe just-
gratifying.
Yeah.
It's very easy.
Well, sure, it's easy, but where's the upside in doing something that's easy? Where's the benefit? Where's the, iron sharpens iron, right? I mean, at least in my life, everybody I've ever admired was uncomfortable for most of their life. They looked for adversity. They didn't run from it. The really smart ones figured out a way to enjoy it, to welcome it, to bring it. Along with The End of Average and everything Todd Rose has written, there's another great book by a friend of mine, Mike Easter, called The Comfort Crisis. I would refer you to that, man. If you're not willing to be fundamentally uncomfortable, then where is your, how bad should anyone feel for you if the thing that you're most interested in achieving is comfort and ease. Like nobody in the history of the world ever wrote a song or a poem. Nothing good that I can think of was ever inspired by the individual who said, and so I set out to be as comfortable as I could, to do everything that's easy, to never really challenge myself. And now look how happy I am. I just have never seen it.
What's the most convincing thing that you could say to the average viewer listening to this right now that doesn't feel like they challenge themselves or seek out adversity to hopefully be able to hone that desire of wanting to challenge themselves?
What are you scared of? You know, be honest. What do you really?
I'd say a lot of people would just
of?
be failure,
Okay.
humiliation,
Okay. You're scared of being humiliated and you're scared of failing. Got it.
embarrassment.
Embarrassed. Absolutely. All great motivators. How does pursuing a life of comfort and ease protect you from those things?
Well, it insulates you from feeling embarrassed or fearful.
Sure. In much the same way the ostrich insulates himself from the environment by sticking his head in the sand. You can get away with a lot of stuff for a while, and then you don't. And I think it's really tempting, and I've certainly made this mistake in my life more than once, but you look at your life like it's a snapshot. You know, it's like, this is what I'm doing. This is how it, but you're not in a snapshot. You're in a movie, you know, and like there's stuff happening all around you all of the time. The chickens are going to come home to roost for those 7 million men who have chosen this life, and it's not gonna be good. And I would love to help them. My foundation tries to help them. You know, if you start with this idea that, look, I'm not going to do a thing that makes me uncomfortable, then okay, check back. Let me know how it goes for you.
In terms of your own career, I'm curious, it seems very accidental and somewhat random from the outside looking in, from opera to QVC to dirty jobs to narration. What habits did you employ that led to that success?
I can't choose what I look like, how tall I am, my race, my gender. I can't, there's a bunch of stuff out of my control. But I can choose to be curious, and I can choose to be uncomfortable. And I got very lucky growing up. Those two things were always presented as wise choices. You know, if you're curious and uncomfortable, you're probably on the road to becoming, if not interesting, at least somebody who has some stories to tell, you know? So that was kind of burned in. The interesting thing, I think, for me is the realization that curiosity has a partner, and the partner is humility. You can't be curious and arrogant at the same time, or certain, right? Curiosity by definition means, I don't know, and I'm game to find out, and finding out might humiliate me. It might make me embarrassed. It might make me uncomfortable. So if you really value curiosity as a virtue, then all the other things we're talking about kind of fall in line. And I was always curious. I still am. The humility for me was, I was sure I was going to follow in my granddad's footsteps, the guy I mentioned earlier, you know. And I spent a couple years as a teenager kind of working as his apprentice on a lot of different jobs. And just because I assumed I was so passionate about wanting to do what he did that I would have inherited the skills necessary to allow my passion to unfold. But of course, the handy gene is recessive, and and you know, it was a very early, really important lesson to realize just because you love something doesn't mean you can't suck at it.
Now, really quick, I just want to say that most people know that they should have an LLC, but they keep pushing it off because it sounds super complicated. Well, that's why we partnered with Northwest Registered Agent. They make the entire process so simple that you could just get it done today.
For $39 plus state fees, Northwest forms your LLC and handles the state filings for you.
You get your operating agreement, member certificates, and banking resolutions, which is all the paperwork that actually makes it official.
And that's all that, plus a free domain, email, phone line, brand protection, and mail forwarding are bundled in so your business is ready to operate in the same day.
And your home address never goes on the public record. Northwest uses their own address in your filings instead of yours.
So if forming an LLC has been sitting on your to-do list for long enough, today is the day. Just go to northwestregisteredagent.com to get started.
That's northwestregisteredagent.com, or click the link down below in the description to get your LLC filed.
Thank you to Northwest Registered Agent for sponsoring this episode, and back to the podcast.